Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? Welcome to the Retail Bulletin. Welcome back to the Retail Bulletin. It's our first event of 2022, and we're really excited to have you back. My name's Darren. I'll be the moderator for the session today. We are super excited to roll out a day of webinars for you. Talking around all things omnichannel, the Omnichannel Futures webinar from the Retail Bulletin. But it's just super exciting to be back in the chair and doing more of these again. We've actually got a really amazing program of events ready for you this year. Do check out the Retail Bulletin website to look at all of the events that will be coming up over the coming months. But even more excitingly to tell you is that the Retail Bulletin turns 20 this year. 20 years old of Retail Bulletin and great retail content and a great team. And we decided that we should probably celebrate that. So we're going to have a conference. Do you remember those things where you gather with other people and you talk about like-minded things in a building with each other and drink tea and coffee and rub shoulders? Those events are coming back and we are super happy to play our part in that. And so we're going to be having a retail conference on the 8th and 9th of November. It's going to be in the Birmingham NEC. There's going to be an overnight party as well, more details to follow, but a proper 2-day event. And we couldn't be more excited. So search the Retail Conference or have a look on the Retail Bulletin website. But yeah, we're going to be putting together a mega program for that event, and we are super excited about it, as you can tell. You can see on the screen that a number of panelists are getting ready and limbered up to join us. I'm going to introduce just one to start with, and we're going to hand over to that one panelist. The others, enjoy yourselves, have a cup of tea and enjoy the show. And then around 9:20, we are going to be kicking off with the full panel. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome my colleague Graham this morning, Graham Johnston from Asda. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us who you are and what you do at Asda.
So I'm Graham Johnston. Morning, everyone. I am the Senior Director for Omnichannel Customer Support. So I look after all of our customer support channels and the transformation of our customer support interactions.
Well, it's great to have you here, and I'm going to hand over the floor to you, actually. So Graham, if the technology works, fingers crossed, is going to be handing over now to a presentation, and for the next 15, 20 minutes or so, have a sip of something lovely and enjoy the show. Over to you, Graham.
Thanks very much indeed. Hopefully you can see the screen. So yeah, I'm just going to take us back a little bit. I think the idea of the presentation is to talk a little bit about the history of omnichannel, where we are today, and just some of the underlying requirements from a customer perspective. So to start that, I'm going to talk about this little creature here. It's a snail, and it's a very famous snail that essentially changed the world. So back in Paisley in 1928, May Donoghue met her friend who they went to a cafe in Paisley, and they sat down, and her friend ordered her a pear and ice for herself, and she ordered a Scotsman's float for May Donoghue. Now, Scotsman's float is basically ice cream with ginger beer poured over it. So obviously the waiter came over, poured out the glass of ginger beer. May then took that ginger beer and poured it onto the bit of ice cream. So as she started to eat this, she just got this horrible taste in her mouth, and she was like, what is that? So passed it over to a friend. They had a look at the bottle. They were kind of trying to work out what was going on. And as she poured the rest of the ginger beer out, she was absolutely shocked that out of that ginger beer bottle fell a decomposing snail. And she was completely affronted, of course, right? So she was like, called the waiter over and said, like, look what I found in my Scotsman's float here. This is, just ridiculous. So she started to feel pretty unwell pretty quickly. And she wanted to make a complaint. She was so affronted by this that she wanted to sort of take action, legal action, and she went to seek out a lawyer locally that would be able to try and hear this case for her. But the lawyer basically said, look, you didn't buy the product. So, you don't have any contract with the place that you bought it. And therefore there's nothing that we can do, right? I mean, it's just, that's the law. So she was really annoyed with this, and she went and found another lawyer, and this other lawyer took it to extreme lengths and actually ended up going to the House of Lords. And the House of Lords heard the case, and in a very, very landmark ruling in 1932, they decided that May Donoghue had a case, and there was a case to answer. So essentially, this law of contract that was in place before that point in time changed to the law of negligence, and as we know it today, a duty of care. So, from that moment on, that little snail back in Paisley in 1928, finally on 1932, for any of the legal people, will kind of recognize Donoghue versus Stevenson. My wife's a lawyer, by the way, which is why I know all about this case. The world changed, and it's rumored that this little snail was responsible for over 1 million lawsuits globally. So going back in time again, right, talking a little bit about the industrial revolutions, it's widely communicated that we're in the fourth industrial revolution right now. And each of these key industrial revolutions, a big innovation has driven what we would refer to as an industrial revolution. And throughout those industrial revolutions, the way that we interact with brands has evolved and changed. So obviously the first industrial revolution, you had, standalone stores that were, physical retail stores that you went in to buy a particular product. As the electricity revolution enabled mass production, then you started to see, merging of department stores selling multiple products across, larger store estates. And then with the introduction of the internet, you had online shopping, and to support online shopping, obviously contact centers and the like emerged to be able to support that different channel. And where we are now in the fourth industrial revolution, with the provision of digital cyber systems linking with physical systems, we have what we would refer to as omnichannel. So I'm going to ask this rhetorical question, because if I was in a room, I'd ask the audience in the room, but we're all virtual. So ask yourself the question. If I'm talking about a store that has seamless personalization, predictive analytics, personalized delivery, and a cashless store, which particular industrial revolution would you think that would fit into? I'm pretty much sure that in your mind's eye, you're thinking the fourth industrial revolution. But I'm going to put it to you that actually this was around in the first industrial revolution, when we, just physical retail stores, there was a relationship. So, as a shopper in that store, you would go in, you'd probably be known to the person who owned the store. They would know you, probably know your family. They would know what you bought. So, they would personalize the products that you bought, and maybe have a bag of stuff ready for you when you went in. They knew when you went in, what day of the week you went in, and they probably knew where you live. So actually, that bag of products could be dropped off at your house, or maybe left somewhere for you to pick up. So actually, when it came to pay for the products, you probably didn't actually even pay for the products on that day. You'd go down on a ledger and then pay at the end of the month when you got your wages. So, all of these kind of key things that we refer to now as really innovative actually existed, way back. So, we had a personal, trusted, and convenient way of interacting with brands all the way back in the first industrial revolution. So what happened? Well, I guess my hypothesis here is that, as we moved through the industrial revolutions and there was more choice and convenience, which obviously has brought great innovation, and we wouldn't want to do without any of that. But has it become a little bit less personal, more centralized, and therefore has that decreased the trust that we have with that, retailer, by knowing the retailer and the retailer knowing us? So also, the way that we've interacted with different products, if you think about it, before the introduction of the mobile phone, we used to have different products where we used to watch TV, pay, listen to music, make phone calls. And obviously the smartphone came along, and every single one of these just went straight back into one device. What we're starting to see now, though, is we're starting to see that that's decentralizing. So we're starting to see that actually the way that we communicate, the way that we interact, isn't just through one device. We're starting to do more in more devices that we have. So 87 years on from this snail incident in Paisley, is trust back? Well, let's just have a look at this quick video and see if it's a metaphor for anything.
Close your eyes and just fall down, okay? Don't worry.
Okay, then Lauren's going to catch you.
Close your eyes. Okay.
Okay, it's called the trust fall. Okay, trust fall. Ready, set, go.
So I love that video, and I love it because obviously, you know, not just because it breaks up a presentation and it's quite funny, but actually it's a good metaphor because actually, you know, the intention's all there, right? You know, we really want to trust, but actually just sometimes things go wrong. They just don't quite go as we expected. And then sometimes, you know, after the interaction, we'll send a survey and say, you know, can you score us out of 10? And we all get them. We all interact with lots of different brands. We all do it. But I love this response I saw this on Twitter and found this very funny. In the fact that, you know, someone sort of, you know, highlighted this response survey and basically saying, look, you know, I need you to understand that people don't have conversations where they randomly recommend operating systems. That's a frustrated customer. It's not a great experience and potentially just doesn't want to fill out that survey. So is technology the answer to all of this, right? Is technology the answer? Because a lot of people think that technology is innovation. Well, actually, my view is that technology on its own is not innovation. Technology enables innovation. And it's actually this quote that I got from a professor at the City Business School when I did leading digital transformations that says that innovation will emerge at the intersection point of things that had little to do with each other and by recombining core technological capabilities. And I think that's a really poignant quote because if we're looking at the fourth industrial revolution as to where we are today, actually the innovation comes from the recombination of all of these existing technologies that exist and have emerged through the previous industrial revolutions. And a great example of that is, you know, you're taking the taxi that's been around for decades, but you add again, existing technology that's already there, online payment, an app, location services, you recombine it all together. And of course, that equals Uber, one of the most disruptive brands to come at the start of this revolution. So recombination is really key in terms of the industrial revolution that we're in right now. But the disruption within the way that we interact with brands in this industrial revolution really does come from omnichannel, because if you're thinking about it, this is our disruption, because all the way through these industrial revolutions we talked about in terms of it being single channel, multi-channel, cross-channel, we're recombining all of the brilliant assets that we've built over the years in terms of how we interact with customers and creating this seamless omnichannel way of interacting. And the most important part of this one graph here is that the difference between where we have previously been with cross-channel, multi-channel, and single channel is we're not building channels for people to come into. We're actually starting with a customer and building the experiences around the customer rather than building channels for customers to come into. So you'll be familiar with these. These are silos and, you know, referred to quite a lot in our world, I guess. And these could represent different areas of a business. They could represent systems. And, you know, ultimately, a lot of times different legacy systems are built and they don't talk to each other. You know, where we are now really is taking those silos and rather than knocking the silos down and building a brand new one, is thinking about how do we treat those different areas and enable customers to be able to navigate through those channels seamlessly, where we can see how customers interact across those channels, but also making it enjoyable for customers to move from previous silos and making it a really joined up and enjoyable experience moving between those different channels. So the future customer journey really does start with a customer at the center, building all of those different communication opportunities around that build on those needs that we talked about, around it being convenient, about it being trusted. And omnichannel really is combining all of these different areas together to make it seamless for the customer. Yes, complex for us in the back end, but seamless for the customer so that they can easily navigate through all of those different channels. So I'd say that, you know, taking those customer needs, adding useful technology, thinking about the culture and ways of working and making it seamless between the different silos really does equal that innovative omnichannel customer experience that we're all aiming for. And at Asda, I've been at Asda about a year now, and looking at our transformation of how we interact with customers, I think it's really important to measure all of these interactions against some of these key criteria. So, you know, when I launch a new channel, so we recently launched WhatsApp as a support channel. We launched Answers, which is an on-site search platform that is produced by a company called Yext, and Voice of the Customer, where we take all of the insights that come in on a daily basis, we wrap it all up and we send it out to the key stakeholders across the business to understand customer pain points, customer opportunities, so that we can really fix things quickly for customers when they don't work. But really measuring every time we launch something, measuring them against these key demands and needs from a customer perspective, and making sure that there's a tick in the box before we go live with any of those initiatives. So just to wrap up, you'll be pleased to know I am nearly at the end of this presentation, but I want to finish with a sort of another anecdote really, and I'm a big football fan, but this is a bit of, again, a rhetorical quiz. Can't do it in the room because you're not physically here. This is the picture of the first British club football team playing in a competitive European football match. So I'm just wondering if anyone out there knows which particular football team this is. So try and answer that question yourself. Well, I'm going to tell you, you might be a little bit surprised by this, that the first British club to play a competitive European match in the European Cup was actually Hibs, Hibernian of Edinburgh, which just happens to be my football team as well. But there's a reason why I'm bringing this up is that there's a really key reason why Hibs were the first football team to play a competitive European football match. And it comes down to technology. They were the first football club in Britain to install floodlights in their stadiums because they realized that to compete in European competitions, they would need to do it during the winter. They would need to be done during the week. And therefore it had to be done at night. And obviously we know winter time equals very early dark nights. So they invested in floodlight technology, and that enabled them to play in European competitions. And at the early stages, right, the floodlights were actually the headline. So, they were having matches specifically about come and watch a football match because of the floodlights. But very quickly, it wasn't the floodlights that were the stars in this. It was the players that were the stars, because the players were enabled to play in the highest possible arena, competing against the best teams in the world because of the floodlights that were installed, the technology that was there to enable them to compete in a different arena. So I really do feel that, we're at this floodlight moment now. We've got the opportunity to invest in technology, which enables our people to become, the stars of interactions. So it's a floodlight moment in investing in the right technology that will enable brands everywhere to engage, and build trust with customers to create that seamless experience that we all want to achieve. And that is me. So I'm going to stop my screen share now, and I'm going to hand back to Darren.
Here I am. Thank you so much. So what a brilliant start to what's going to be a really full day of events here at the Retail Bulletin. Graham, I'm interested. Thank you so much for that. You spent almost a decade, pretty much a decade at Three, right?
Yeah.
So what's the shift been like from kind of that mobile tech world into grocery and general merchandise?
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually, because I think that the cost, you think about the way that you interact with brands. Every single type of brand's got a different way or a different product set. Obviously mobile, mostly when you're signing up to a mobile contract, you're doing it for 12 or 24 months. So the interaction frequency from a customer contacting us would be, fairly infrequent, potentially around billing time, around upgrading the contract, etc. With grocery, obviously, and fashion, that is far more regularly. So if you're doing your weekly shop, then there's more opportunities for customers to contact us. So actually, the demands are slightly different in that, it's frequency. Sometimes, the nature of the inquiry is a little bit more urgent in terms of, where's my delivery, versus maybe I've got a query with a bill. So the actual nature of the inquiries has been really different. So that's been, fantastic learning. But, ultimately it boils down to what I just talked about there, is about, how do you build the channels that fit into a customer's needs? I don't think the channels are any different, because, we are all consumers of probably a mobile company, probably a grocery, online delivery, hopefully Asda. But, you kind of, the way you want to interact with any brand tends to be the way it suits you. And actually that might not be the same depending on the nature of your inquiry or the time of your inquiry. Sometimes that might be you want to make an urgent phone call. Next time it might be you just want to send a WhatsApp and, not bother about having to respond to that WhatsApp inquiry until maybe 2 or 3 hours later. So it's been really interesting. It's been a real change in terms of industry, but yeah, I've learned a lot.
Well, thank you, sir. I think you've earned yourself a sip of something hot. Thank you. And someone's already said in the chat, actually, a TRB guest, thank you. It's just said great presentation. So thanks a lot. Stay with us if you can. And I'm going to introduce your colleagues on the panel now as well to widen out the conversation and bring in some new characters that you can see on the screen in front of you right now. So good morning to Ken and Gracia, Jenny and Chrissy. I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves because it's so much nicer to hear from you rather than me. And then we can get things kicking off. Reminder, audience, there's quite a few of you today as well, by the looks of it. You are here to ask questions as well. This is your webinar. My job as the moderator is to simply make sure that every question that gets asked gets answered. So use the Q&A button. It's somewhere on your device, top or bottom, depending on what you're using. And I'll make sure that we get the question to the panel or the panelist that you want specifically. Without further ado, let's find out who they are. Ken, tell us about you, sir.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Ken Daly. I'm the Chief Executive of JML. JML is an innovative consumer product brand. We develop products that make consumers' lives easier in categories like housewares, health and beauty, small domestic appliances. And our business is selling these products through bricks and mortar retailers, which are extremely important to us, online, of course, and through international distributors. And our kind of USP is that every product that we develop has a video film. This is something we're all familiar with online, but this is something that JML's been doing since the company was formed in the 80s. So we were perfectly positioned with video content for every product for the growth of online. So we are a multi-channel retailer, and yeah, I'm delighted to be on this panel. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Welcome back. I can remember those early JML ads in stores. You know, there'd be a screen somewhere with a JML product rolling on the screen. So yeah, I remember it well. Good to have you back, sir. Gracia, tell us about you. Welcome back.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Really good to be here. A little bit about me. I am on the board of several businesses, and what they mainly have in common is that they are online retail businesses, so always the customer central to whatever we do. And one of the businesses is called Stitched, and we try to sell a very difficult product in as very easy way as possible, which is curtains. And we have developed a 3D model in order to do that, and an app in order to make it, to show you what it would look like at your home. So that's one of the businesses. And the other business is Closet Pets, where I'm a chair, and it is we call it pet technology. Our customers are people who have cats or dogs, and they might want to go out at some point back to work and need to feed that cat or that dog, and we supply bowls that can open at a certain time so they get fed at the right time, or even through RFID that we have implemented in our product. You can use your app in order to open those bowls. And also if you have cats, we make sure that the right cat comes into your house through the cat flap, and if it's carrying some kind of prey, it won't come through the house, it won't come through the cat flap. It will detect that it isn't the right, that it is not safe to bring the bird in the house as well. So yeah, that's the pet technology part of it. And as you gather through COVID, we have become even more busy with people having dogs and cats added to their households.
Welcome back, and it's good to have you with us as well. I'm sure we've got quite a few pet lovers on the panel already. So everyone loves talking about pet stores and so on. So yeah, let's find out some more later. Jenny, hello. Tell us about you and your lovely brand.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be here. My name's Jenny. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Ochre. We're a British furniture and homewares brand, which was launched around 20 years ago by 3 entrepreneurial women, mostly in the UK, also recently launched into the US 2 years ago. So my role, I look after both kind of the marketing digital side as well as all of the omni-channel trading across web, retail and trade. And my background really come from kind of branding and omni-channel focused on luxury brands, so LVMH, P&G and De Beers.
Welcome to the panel. Great to have you here. And last but certainly not least, hello, Chrissy from Bird and Blend, that lovely tea company. Tell us about you.
Hi, Darren. Hello, everyone. Yeah, thanks for having me again. So my name is Chrissy. I'm the co-founder and creative director of Bird and Blend Tea Company. We are a tea blending specialist. We are tea blending specialists, and we come up with some of the most fun and flavourful teas you will ever try. We have 15 stores across the UK and a thriving online website as well, set up by myself and my partner Mike 10 years ago now, actually, from our back bedroom, started in markets and things, and have grown it from scratch. And we're just about to go through B Corp as well this year, so lots of exciting things going on over at Bird and Blend.
When's the actual 10th birthday? Have you already had it, or is it coming up?
No, it's on the 2nd of July, and we're going to have we're calling it the Big Tea Hangout. It's going to be a bit of a festival to celebrate the last 10 years and, you know, family and friends of the business that have got us to where we are today. Very, very loyal fan base.
Quite right too. A decade is quite something. So great to have you back. Thank you for giving up your time to join us, all of you today as well. And Ken, I'm going to start with you, if I may. Don't forget, audience, that Q&A button's there for you to use as you want to. Ken, we watch telly a bit differently these days. So, you know, on demand, streaming and so on, that traditional linear TV viewing has declined in lots of ways. We watch TV how we want. How does that affect retailers and brands?
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, I think it's there's a real challenge for brands and retailers, actually, because as we all know, less and less people are watching linear TV. I think we had a bit of a reprieve during the early stages of the pandemic when more people were at home and watching linear TV. But most of us will have a Netflix account, Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus, all these different video on demand platforms, which mean we're watching less and less TV where we actually see the advertising. And this is a real challenge for brands and retailers, as I say. You know, how do you communicate with your customers in a world where TV is declining? Funnily enough, at the same time, the demand for TV is massively increasing. So, you know, if you do watch linear TV, on the rare occasions that you do, you'll see lots and lots of digital businesses, people who used to be purely digital, advertising on TV. You know, you think about the comparison websites, car websites, estate agents. These guys are advertising like crazy on TV and pushing up the cost of TV because the demand is increasing, but the availability of eyeballs is declining. So yeah, it is a real challenge. I'm not saying that I've got the solution, but it has to be around a multi-channel approach, which is reaching your customers through every possible way that you can. And of course, digital is very, very important indeed. Social influencers are a big part of JML's business now, but using those digital methods to drive people into stores is extremely difficult. It's much easier to convert people online. So if you want to drive people into stores with advertising, it's quite hard to see what will do that other than TV, perhaps outdoor. Outdoor was terribly challenged during the pandemic when less people were actually outside. But as I say, the answer has to be a multi-channel approach or an omni-channel approach, or dare I even say a ubiquity-channel approach, which is something I just scribbled down right now because I think that perhaps is the next kind of iteration where, you know, you see a brand's marketing and a consistent message at every touch point, kind of everywhere, not just in certain channels. So I think it is going to be a difficult period for brands and retailers. I don't read much commentary about the decline of TV, and I think it's an interesting question because I think it is a very, very significant challenge for a lot of businesses.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, thinking about the way traditional TV was, I'm not sure whether you saw the news article the other day. It's but the Channel 5 is taking Neighbours off. I didn't even know Neighbours was still on, but it made the news, and it was talking about Neighbours' heyday. And I remember sort of running home from school trying to catch Neighbours at 5 o'clock, I think it used to be on. And one of the episodes got 20 million viewers in the 80s. And then there was an episode of EastEnders that got 30 million viewers. And it's just nuts that you think all of those millions would convalesce around one program at the same time. And
Yeah,
how
absolutely. Just one other point, actually, I should say, it may be that a sort of hybrid model. There is talk of a sort of Netflix Lite package where the subscription fees are lower and you do see some advertising. So it may well be, because I think the average consumer now may have 4 or 5 different video on demand accounts, and they might have Sky, they might have Virgin as well. And suddenly they realize that they're paying, you know, a couple of £100 a month or something on streaming services, and that's untenable for a lot of people, particularly as everyone's being squeezed at the moment. So it may be that a kind of a solution for advertisers will be a sort of video on demand light service where you mix a smaller subscription payment with some advertising.
Thank you, sir. Interesting start to kick things off with the wider panel. Thank you. Glacia, I'm going to come to you if I may. I'm going to take you to your Stitched business, and staying with this kind of new customer behavior vibe. How have you guys over at Stitched adjusted to new customer behavior?
Yeah, I actually have a very simple answer to that question. However, I was thinking, and also Graham, fantastic presentation, and I really like the way you step back and look at the bigger picture. And of course, that's what we all need to do more and more. And when I was thinking about this panel and about what we're trying to achieve these days, it was very much about you know, what I'm doing on a daily basis. I find myself much more in the macroeconomic level operating. It is really about the world, you know, what else is out there. It is not about, you know, our little businesses or big businesses. It really is about what's going on in the world and how do we adapt to that, which I think, you know, Graham did, you know, illustrated so well. And, you know, and you were talking about interpreting the technologies that we have in order to offer the best to our customer. And of course, you know, we all know we've had COVID, and that has woken up a lot of people, a lot of businesses, and how to react to a changing world. But what I'm also thinking is, and how it has affected our businesses is, you know, COVID is one thing, but of course there are so many other things that could happen. And COVID took us maybe a little bit by surprise, but I don't want that to happen again. So you hear of a risk register that, you know, and on the board we're having risk registers so that we are very aware of what's going on in the world and how that could affect our businesses. And in a way, I don't want to call them risk registers. I call them more like innovation registers, because you know, they're not risks. So you just need to adapt. And then coming back again to that word innovation doesn't necessarily mean new technology. It really just means, in my opinion, how you adapt to the changing world, to the bigger picture. And so coming then back to Stitched, it's actually, you know, we are trying to sell something complicated in a very easy way. We've developed a 3D technology, we've developed an app, and that's all great. And it works really well. But however, what we found, especially through COVID, when our demand went through the roof, because, you know, none of our competitors really could offer an out-of-home service, we became very busy. But we also realized quite quickly that people did want to have that interaction with us, even though we couldn't go to the homes. So simple things like video calling became incredibly important. And that's what we changed. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be something really difficult or technology. You know, innovation was actually the video call, which really brought, which really made sure that we gave what our customers wanted.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go over to you, Jenny, if I may, and really on this new habits thing. How have you seen consumers sort of change their habits, and what's been adopted for now? What will stay? What's your view?
I mean, I think we obviously saw more people moving to shop online during the pandemic, particularly those older audiences, and also clients buying product groups that they didn't used to buy online. So there was obviously the explosion in areas where they already did, like shopping deliveries, but in pieces like large furniture, that was something that used to be a lot more through retail. So I think you got that expansion into categories where people used to see barriers through online. What we're now seeing is people really moving back to this omni-channel model. So they're very happy to buy smaller pieces, you know, directly online, you know, cushions, lamps, etc. But what we tend to see is that for furniture, people are, say, researching online, then coming to store and then buying online. And if you look at, we have about 50% of our business that goes through e-commerce, which is up from pre-pandemic levels. But if you look, there's a very high percentage of online orders that come from within 5 miles of a store. So that's where you have to really think from an omni-channel model and not think, well, because we have a website, we can sell 50% of this. A lot of that is driven by other interactions, whether it's our magazine dropping through the door or going into store. So, I think to Graham's point earlier, it's really about thinking about the client and how they want to shop. I think the other thing that we've seen, which is really interesting, is gifting. Everyone during the pandemic got into sending gifts direct to their friends. So instead of buying something, wrapping it nicely and taking it to someone's house or even sending it, people are sending directly. So having all the systems set up to have gift messaging, gift wrapping, easy returns. I don't say we're 100% there yet, but that's a really interesting area for brands to think about as well.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to come, if I may, to the chat function. A couple of comments for you, Graham. Actually, there are people saying they love the snail story and they love the floodlight moment analogy as well. And then if I can ask all panelists just to have a look in the chat. Someone has said that they're an ex-retailer and they're asking for your opinion away from the webinar to look into something called Octium. And they put a little link in there for you, panelists. So if you have a look at that later, and I'm happy to pass that on as a message to you all. So yeah, something in the chat, a little link to something called Octium if you want to take a look. Christy, I'm going to come to you if I may. Staying with this kind of customer behavior, online behavior piece, what are you guys over at Bird and Blend seeing your customers do, and what's been the biggest change in the way that you guys have been doing business?
Yeah, so I think it might sound a bit boring, but we've been focusing on our tech and our data, to be honest. Coming into COVID and out of COVID, we're a very experience-based brand. We see our stores as showrooms, or almost. You can go in there and you can learn about tea. You can get demonstrations. The team are incredibly knowledgeable, and it's where we see our sort of brand advocacy and loyalty touch points are, that's what, the cohorts in our customer base that shop in store at some point on their journey are exponentially more valuable to us. They're more attached, they stay for longer, they spend more. So that's sort of the role that the store plays. So we were set up for that model, I guess, and it has seen us through a little bit, especially with the strong e-com side being able to stay open during COVID. But coming out of this time, one of the things that we've realized that we don't have and that we need is really insightful data about how our customers are behaving, not necessarily what they want, because you can get to that by listening and making sure you're listening to your customers, keeping on top of trends and things that happen, and going to things like this where you learn a lot, but really understanding sort of the future value of your customer base, because we inducted a large number of online only customers. So people that joined us during COVID who were perhaps looking for tea rather than Bird and Blend. They were looking for tea because they couldn't get tea in the supermarket, and maybe they were supporting independent business. So we all of a sudden had this influx of a segment of our customers that we didn't understand. We didn't know what their behavior was. So being able to model our finances, our marketing, our behavior, pick out the opportunities to grow the business became quite difficult, because we suddenly realized we couldn't predict what these types of customers were doing. So that's been a challenge. So we've doubled down on the tech and the data hygiene to make sure that we can really get that knowledge before we go full steam ahead investing into things that perhaps won't be viable or might not work for us. I think the days have gone where literally Mike and I could go to a market stall and physically test a product with the customer. So, and the business has got a lot bigger now. So we have to be smarter about what we invest our time and money into. So it's been a challenge. I hope that's not too boring. Obviously, there's lots of fun.
No, not at all.
But
Do you think some customers that used to shop just in your stores have shifted online and stayed online, or do you think they've done a bit of a mix of the two now? Have you got the data to support that kind of thing on it?
It's definitely a mix. I mean, I was talking to someone about this last night, actually. I was fairly confident that our type of retail would survive, whatever we're calling the current situation, retail 2.0, because we are very experience based. And I think, you know, humans are always going to want a physical space to hang out in, whether or not it's the shops that we knew before on the high street, I'm not sure. But I wasn't sure that, you know, this sort of online convenience, you know, sort of trend was going to come back. But you know what? It was bounced back massively. Our stores are busier than ever, to be honest. It seems to have, and in fact, almost to the detriment, not to the detriment, but, you know, January's not quite been, you know, we're slightly under on e-com, but the stores are massively over. And I was looking at the January trends, and it does seem like, you know, a lot of retail spending is going on the high street at the moment, which did surprise me, actually. But yeah, they definitely have done a bit of both, and they're continuing to do a bit of both. The tricky thing for us is trying to convince people that found us digitally that they do want to come into a store, because that's what we want them to do, because we know they'll have a great experience. So a lot of these sorts of things are about how do we get our in-store customers, you know, online, and how do we serve them online. I'm actually trying to get my online customers to go in store.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, it's interesting.
It is indeed, and actually it's a beautiful segue back to Ken. Thank you so much for that, Chrissy. Because Ken, what is your view on, you know, good old bricks and mortar? You know, if you are predominantly a bricks and mortar retailer and your business is still shifted that way, what do you do in order to survive?
Well, just to echo some of the things that Chrissy's just said, having kind of described all of the challenges that there are, actually bricks and mortar retail is doing reasonably well at the moment. And actually, I think we've seen online sales in the UK decline from a peak against very, very high comparatives during the thick of the pandemic. But over the last few months, we have seen a slight decline in online sales, which I think for the first time in history. So people do want to go into stores. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And of course, retailers are doing a whole range of things, which, you know, we all know about: in-store theatre, great customer service, all of those things that every bricks and mortar retailer will know that their customers want. I guess there's one other thing that I would say should be a priority, that if you're a bricks and mortar retailer that stocks brands, I will put your best people on building the relationship with the brands, because the brands understand their consumers, the people who are buying the products. They're spending money on marketing the products, and I think there can be a tendency sometimes to put junior members of the team on the kind of the buying relationships with brands. So I would say that if you are a bricks and mortar retailer that stocks brands, third-party brands, that is, you should invest in the relationships, because it's a partnership. You know, together we all want people to buy products, and we all want to learn from the data to maximize the potential of a particular brand.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Gracia, tell me who you think might be doing a great job in this kind of understanding new needs. I mean, both store and online, or both. You know, any standout stars out there you think you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation with the CEO of Decathlon last night, and I really admire those stores because they sell sporting equipment, and they, you know, coming back to Ken's point, they create theatre. So, you know, you can play table tennis in their stores. You know, they have communities of people being there, and you can join the league in their stores. I mean, it's a lot of fun. And I think they're doing a really good job. But when it's interesting, I've never spoken to him before, and I asked him, so what do you think? You know, what has made the biggest impact, really, you think, to your customer instead of the people playing in the store, whatever? And he said it is just paying, your self-pay. So it's like what Uniqlo does as well. You know, you just put your basket at the end. There's not even a till, really, pretty much, and it knows exactly how much you need to pay. You touch your card on your phone. So, you know, it's the RFID technology that has really helped, they find, because payments are just so easy. And so that is the convenience that is done in store, which matches in a way, or you have the experience in store where then you can pay quite easily. So that's a great experience for the customer. I think another one that I always really like is Selfridges. I mean, they're very good at the theater element of shopping. Otherwise, again, to Ken's point about brands, there is not much point going into a store, a supermarket, a big store like that, department store, if there isn't a very good reason, where you get inspired, and they're coming up with some really interesting things, like you can make appointments for your well-being. They are open out of hours for kids to have parties in the toy section of the store. There is a cinema now. I mean, I think that's really great stuff, and they're doing a really good job, and there's genuine demand for that. It isn't done because people want to innovate. It isn't that, innovate. I mean, it's not technology. It's just listening to your customers, opening our minds, looking at what is really relevant in the new world, and offer that. So
they're great examples. I love Selfridges as well. I just like hanging out in the food hall. It's one of my favorite places to be. Only because I love food, obviously, but two, I just think it's great for kind of just brand admiring and seeing who they're stocking right now and what different things they've got. And Harrods is another great food hall to hang out in as well. But yeah, some great examples there. Jenny, you are at the higher end of retailing in terms of your products and your branding. And I guess that by default gives you quite a demanding customer. Customers expect a lot. How do you optimize that sort of end-to-end digital experience for your demanding customer base?
I mean, I think the first thing is you have to get the basics and the technology really right. So it's about having that kind of seamless experience between online, offline. So, for example, when we sell furniture in the store, obviously that's going to be delivered to you. You don't walk out of the store with it. So making sure that you're getting the same emails, that if you have a wish list online, you can view that in store. Simple things like we need to be able to view the stock that's available on the till system and not have to go to the website to look it up. So customers really want immediate information now. They want quick shipping. So having everything to hand and making sure that they can then go back into their account online, see when something's being delivered. So it's not been easy, I must say, to get to that point, but to really make sure that everything ties up in the back end. And then I think that there's some more exciting things you can do on the front end in a way. So again, I'm always thinking about the client and their shopping experience, and in a way, what are their pain points in that journey? And one with furniture is if they can't come into a store, how big is it? What's the actual finish? And one of Ochre's differences is we lay out the store through what we call room sets. So, an inspiring living room, an inspiring dining room, rather than here's 8 sofas, here's 9 dining tables. So we put live video chat onto the website, but instead of directing that to customer service, it's picked up by the store. So you've got really trained salespeople who can have a video call with a client, walking around the store saying, you're interested in our Rubin sideboard. Okay, let me show you the finish. Let's look at this. Let's see what it looks like in a room set. So that's worked really well for us. And again, for people who can't get into a store, makes them feel like they're in physical retail. So I'm not one for gimmicks. I hate it when people go, you should try this technology. I'm like, what's it solving? But if you start from, what's the client journey? What do you want to solve for them? Or how do you want to bring inspiration to them? That's where I think technology can really help.
Yeah, those room sets in your Kings Road store. I mean, wow. I mean, you just kind of want to immerse yourself in there and pretend it's your house or something, right? I mean, they are done so brilliantly. Your VM is absolutely just top notch. So yeah, if you haven't seen the Kings Road Ochre, go and check it out. It is something to behold. Thank you very much. Chrissy, I'm going to come to you next, and then I'm going to bring Graham in for an audience question after that as well. Chrissy, you've mentioned stores are doing well in January. They've obviously exceeded your expectations a bit in January, which is great to hear. And you are a retailer that is still opening stores. And I think you rolled out, was it 3 more last year?
4, yeah.
4 more. So it's great that obviously Bird & Blend still believes in the role of the physical store. But if you're a retailer watching today and you have some physical stores and the numbers aren't that great, what would your advice be to physical retailers to ensure they are surviving in this retail 2.0 you talk about?
Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it? I think obviously we've all been squeezed by even staffing at the moment, super hard, getting the right people on your shop floor. It's never been harder, and you have to spend a lot more to retain them, and we've got sickness and cover, and people getting used to what hours to cover the trends of footfall are all over the place. It has been a nightmare. So the first thing I would say is if anyone has experienced any of those things, you're not alone. We definitely have experienced all of those things. We are looking at the number of customers that we're growing our retail, so I don't know how relevant that is to many people, but we're looking at sort of how many customers we would like to induct, I guess, or get to step through our threshold. So in some locations, we're looking at doubling down on activities in the local community. So getting involved with universities, getting involved with different groups, getting involved with the council to see if we can get any more awareness of the store in that city, in the wider community. In some of the stores, we are looking at relocating. So they already have a decent customer base, but if we put them in a slightly higher footfall area, we think that customer base would follow us there, and then we'd have access to more. And at the moment, there are some good units to be found, and there are some good rents to be had. We got 3 high street locations that we would never have been able to afford before in the last year because of the current climate. So silver lining there. You can get more flexible deals and things. So we're looking at relocating some of them, and we're then also looking at opening new stores. So we've got a sort of 3-pronged attack to it. It's not just about the one strategy. So I guess it's think a little bit on your feet about what the best strategy for you is to get the most out of your space, whether you're in the right space, are you in the right location. It can be a huge overhaul to have to do something, like a relocation, or to, put a lot of time and effort into events, or, looking at your team training and things like that. But I would definitely advise doing it now, because it's going to put you in good stead for the future. It's not going to get any easier, I don't think, for a little while. So just try and take a step back, and we're trying to take a step back and think smartly about how we can add value to the local high street or the cities that we're in. It's the model that we all got to sort of follow over the last couple of years is not the same anymore, is it?
It's that kind of real community-based retailing, isn't it? Where you're a retailer that becomes part of the town, the high street that you're in. And I think you guys do that really well. Another one does that very well, actually, and they're a fairly big chain now. I think they've got over 90 stores, but Gales are also really good at dropping into local communities, and they are a chain. Hate the word, but they are a chain, but they do it very well, where they become kind of part of the fabric of the town, the village they drop into. So it's always worth checking out Gales. I do spend too much money in Gales when I go to the one nearby as well. Graham, I'm going to come over to you. Just really any commentary on what you're hearing so far, particularly around this kind of changing customer behavior piece. The grocers have been slammed in so many different ways over the last 2 years. And, at Retail Week Awards in October, they were given a collective, award for services to the nation. And absolutely they should have done. They kept us all fed and watered. But what are you guys seeing over at Asda in terms of this behavior piece? Have there been any real key moments or things that you've changed, forever?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I mean, there's a great discussion, by the way. I think what I'm hearing from the panel. I mean, there's a lot of really consistent themes coming up. I think clearly the pandemic changed people's behaviour. I think like everyone, we saw an uplift in customers ordering their grocery shopping online, and some of that is maintained post-pandemic. A lot of people have obviously gone back to shopping directly in stores, but also what we're seeing is a lot more people that are doing more of that kind of searching online and going into store, whether that's building a basket in their online basket and then going into store to complete the shopping, using scan and go in the stores as well, and sort of conjoining the digital platforms with the physical retail environment. So I think that is an interesting trend, and behaviors continue to change the more digital tools we put in customers' hands. And I think what you see there is where there used to be some quite, either an online customer and a physical retail customer, there's a lot more of the blending of those journeys. And I think that probably is not just relevant to our function, our industry, it's relevant to all. But yeah, I think, clearly that was a really busy time for everybody in the grocery industry. I joined in the middle of it, so it was an interesting introduction to the industry. But what I saw was a huge amount of endeavour from people to get it right for customers. People just going above and beyond to try and find ways of tackling what was a huge amount of challenge across the whole industry, and a lot of collaboration, a huge amount of collaboration, not just within the business but across the whole industry to support people, and that was really, really, really fantastic to experience. And long may that continue. I think it's there's a lot of things that have come out of the last couple of years that I hope will change things for the better in terms of our society and the way that people collaborate, support third sector organizations that are set up to do good for people and for communities. So I'm hoping that has something that is changed, and I do see that, and I do feel that, and I'm sure the other panelists have a view on it, but I think that's hopefully something.
Fingers crossed. I mean, it was nice to see all the leaders of the big grocers standing together at Retail Week to sort of collect their award, and as I said, rightfully so. And you guys got slammed in both ways, because obviously your stores were open and online slots went completely crazy. And so you were being slammed in both channels, if you like. But yeah, I mean, incredible time for you guys indeed. Thank you, sir. I'm going to come to this panel question and I'm going to throw it out there. So fingers on buzzers, panel, first one to answer. And then I'm going to come around from Ken back to Graham to ask you all for some final thoughts as well. So fingers on buzzers, guys. On the subject of payments, this is from Nadia. Thank you, Nadia. On the subject of payments, do any of you use any payment technology to track customer data and behavior across your different channels? So any payment technology out there? Anyone want to take that one?
I can answer.
Yes.
No, in a word. We don't through the payment technology, because it's actually reasonably difficult to get hold of that sort of ethically and in a sensible fashion. But we do use the different methods. So we get sort of basic customer profiling and information from, we took the step this year, well, we're taking the steps this year to join up our online platform with our in-store POS. So the sort of top line customer data that you perhaps would find useful to plan your financial modeling and your marketing and stuff comes out of there. And then we are developing I wanted to say, we started off thinking about it as loyalty. So, some of the big brands like Boots, Advantage Card, they gather their customers' data and profiling through the Advantage Card. Every time a customer uses that online in-store, they know what they're doing. But we thought, or do we need to bring out an app or a loyalty program or something to get them to, because you need to incentivize them in the store to give you their data, I guess, without them knowing. That sounds a bit creepy, but you know what I mean. And actually, we worked through it, and we did a couple of months on this, and we've actually circled all the way back round to, maybe it doesn't have to be that complicated for the customer. So what we do, what we're planning on doing is actually asking the customer at the till if they would like their tasting notes for their purchase today to be popped in their account area online. So it's added value for the customer. It's not too stressful. It's not sort of a very big thing they have to sign up for. We're not tricking them by saying, that thing that everyone does when they say, would you like an email receipt? We all know what's going on there, and then from that we link their account up, and then when they go on to shop with us, either in-store or online, we know what they're doing. We use that for personalization. We use that for loyalty, rewards, and all sorts of things. So yeah, I hope that helped a bit, but nothing on the payment side. It's quite difficult to do.
I did. Thank you very much. We are running out of time rapidly, so I am going to come back to Ken and then do a round robin of all of our wonderful panelists for some final thoughts, actually, putting you on the spot, Ken, because the others get a bit longer to think about it than you do. But we've heard a lot of content today. We've talked a lot about customer behavior, you know, and some of the challenges that are faced in the way that the consumers are acting and behaving and habits changing. What would be some final thoughts from you for our audience today?
Yes, you're quite right. The consumer behavior has changed dramatically in the past 24 months, I guess it is now, which we all know. I think the fact that several of us are doing this call from home, for example, I have to say I was hoping to do this call from my office, but unfortunately yesterday I tested positive. I'm self-isolating, so if I sound a bit croaky, that's why it is, but I'm absolutely fine. But I think that it typifies the fact that the consumers' lives have changed, not just because of their shopping habits, but because the way that we're all working, and people who are office-based now are used to being flexible in terms of where they can be located. So that will change the way that we shop. And you mentioned Gales, Darren, which perhaps I think you're probably not an Asda shopper, Darren. I suspect we're talking about Harrods and Selfridges, but Gales is a great example of a chain that's benefited from people shopping locally and popping out in their lunch hour from home. So people's lives have dramatically shifted, as well as their shopping habits. And I think technology is going to be absolutely fundamental to the way that we capitalize on these changes. One thing I did just want to mention is something that we're testing is QR codes in store, where QR codes have been around for 10 years plus, something like that. But pre-pandemic, nobody ever scanned them. But now, because of we're used to NHS app and going into pubs and scanning the QR code, the acceptance of QR codes has gone up massively. So we're seeing that people want to watch very, very short. I mean, we're talking sort of 5 to 10 second videos in store on a product that they see on shelf. Clearly, you can't do that on thousands of products on a grocery shop. Otherwise, you'd never get anybody out of store. But for selective products where there's a story to be told and features and benefits that the consumer wants to understand, they will scan the QR code in store and will watch, because we're all walking around with our phones in our hands now, which is another behavioral change. So I think it's a very exciting time, because there's so many opportunities here. The key will be the companies that are most fleet of foot and prepared to adapt and move quickly will be able to take advantage of these opportunities.
Thank you, sir. And I hope you're not feeling too rubbish
No, I'm fine.
with COVID, and the next 5 days of isolation passes smoothly for you. 5 days now, of course. Remember the old days of 10, how we miss those. But yeah, I hope you're not feeling too bad, and thanks for your contribution. Do you know what? It's funny you should mention Asda, because I did used to be an Asda customer years ago in Canary Wharf, because I used to live over that way, and there was a big one over there. I'm assuming there still is. The reason I don't shop with Asda now is I am still one of those old school guys who likes to pick his own food out. And I actually really enjoy going to supermarkets. So Sainsbury's, sorry, Graham, get my food dollar at the moment, because there's one literally across the street from where I live. So I still like picking up my food and doing it myself. I wish I could afford to do my grocery shop in Selfridges and Harrods. It's more checking out other brands rather than grocery shopping weekly. But yeah, I still like to go to food shops. I'm one of those old school ones. But thank you, Ken. All good. Gracia, final closing words for us.
Yeah, I try to keep it short. I really think it's about stepping back. People are running businesses, step back and look at the world. I mentioned in the beginning, macroeconomical environment, you need to look outside. And so therefore try not to stick round pegs in square holes, or the other way around. Maybe it is not relevant anymore to open more stores. Maybe you're going to be, maybe what you're selling is not necessary to be sold in a store, but in a very different environment. Maybe it's a takeaway, maybe it's, there are so many different ways about serving what's relevant to the customer. And I just really think you need to think creatively. It's really important. It's what the customer wants. It's not what you want your business to do. It is really what the customer asks of you, and you need to be open to that. And we are agile. Therefore, you need to be agile, flexible, and creative.
Yeah, access your product and your brand how they want, when they want, basically. Yeah. Thank you so much. A great contribution to the panel, as always. Thank you, Jenny. Closing words, please.
I think very, very similar thoughts there to Grazia, which is really put your customer first. It's a great time to step back. I think during the pandemic, we were working at high speed, day to day, making things happen. It's a great time to take a step back. I always say, you know, marketing is about connecting a customer with a product or service that they really want. And it's how you do that. There's so many different channels and different media that you can use, but ultimately that's what you're trying to do. So take a step back and think about the best way to do that for your client. And the other thing I interestingly picked up from the panel, which I also believe in, is physical experiences. So whether that's retail bricks and mortar or whether that's pop-ups or different physical experiences, I do believe that that is core to building a brand. You know, and I think as we come out of COVID, hopefully we've been saying that for about 18 months, you know, we'll find how those things connect, and don't underestimate the impact that retail or physical experiences has on your online performance.
Thank you so much for your contribution today. And if you, as I said, if you haven't been over to the King's Road store, go check out those room sets. They are something to behold. Chrissy, wrap up some thoughts for us, please.
Yeah, I think mine is just similar echo of taking the time to step back and have a look at what, you know, what your business, your customers, your data, you know, your peers and people in the industry can sort of teach you or tell you that you're looking for insights as to how to, you know, take the next step forward. We don't know we can't be certain as to what the right next step is, but we can take an educated guess by you know, really having to think about it. And the other thing I would say is to put a positive spin on things. You know, there are plenty of opportunities out there to be had for companies that are resilient, that are passionate, that are looking for opportunities to improve. And there are, you know, I think more than ever before, opportunities for businesses to really shine in the retail space and in the customer's experience space. So yeah, keep testing things and don't be afraid to fail, but then learn about it and, you know, keep trying, and hopefully.
That's great advice. I love your retail 2.0 sort of comment.
You can have that, Darren, if you like.
Yeah, thanks. I'm so stealing that one for future reference. But I think it's actually it's a really good way of summarizing what's happening in retail right now. And you're right. I think there's lots of really exciting stuff happening. It feels resurgent in some ways. And, you know, and it couldn't have been through a tougher time. But I think the points you make are really compelling. But yeah, I'm so stealing retail 2.0. Thank you. And thanks as always for joining us.
You're welcome.
Graham, you kick things off and you can close it down for us as well. Final thoughts, please, sir.
Well, first of all, obviously, I have to find out where you live and get an Asda near you so that you can get back to being an Asda shopper, Darren. That's the first thing. But yeah, I think, you know, great discussion. I think that go back to what I said at the start around, you know, the answers are within our customers, right? Our customers will tell us what they want, what they need. I think the more we can listen and learn and ask the right questions, the more we'll be able to create experiences that they want and desire. And I think that, you know, sometimes that's, you know, listening and doing exactly, and others is listening and saying, okay, well, maybe we should try something completely different here and think a little bit outside of the box. And I think that's where some of this great innovation comes around, you know, the assets that are in existence for businesses around, you know, the people that are in the physical stores or the people that are in the support centers. How can they be their experiences be used differently across those different channels? So thinking about people in store, how can they support online customers and vice versa? And I think that's where the real innovation will come, I think, in the next little while, is just thinking differently about the way that we interact with customers across all of those different channels. But, you know, really listening to our customers and understanding exactly what it is that they see as their desires and their pain points, and how can we introduce experiences that rectify them.
Thank you, sir. And thanks again for that presentation at the beginning, which kicked us off in a really different way. We haven't done something like that for a long time, so it was really good to have. And panelists, there's tons of thank yous in the chat as well. So thank you to all of you for such compelling content. That's the end of the first kickoff of the first 2022 Retail Bulletin. We're back with a vengeance by the looks of it. What a brilliant way to kick things off. Don't forget, this session is recorded, and someone was asking earlier in the chat if they could catch from the beginning. Yes, you can. So the whole thing is recorded and will be shared on all the various channels, YouTube, LinkedIn, and so on as well. don't forget, we're back at 11 o'clock with another panel, this time talking about e-commerce innovation. So do come back and join us. But for now, I wanted to thank our sponsors, FinderLogic, Limworks and Izon for their continued support. But my biggest thanks, of course, goes to these stellar guys with me on the screen. So Graham, Ken, Gracia, Jenny and Chrissy, take a bow. Thank you so much for your contribution today and for giving up your time. Thank you. And we're done. Wrap and see you all back here at 11 o'clock.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, bye.